To most people, a grandmother is someone who loves them unconditionally, spoils them, and allows them to do things their parents won't. For me, however, a grandmother is nothing more than a title for my mom's mom, someone whom I vaguely remember aside from a rare visit or story that my mom has told me. Now as I see my mom take on the role of grandmother and interact with my niece, I deeply regret not getting the chance to have a relationship or even know my own grandmother. Adele Kurtz Lentine is the name of the woman who raised my mom, 4 aunts, and uncle, my grandmother. She lived in the cold north while I lived in the sunny south. With so many miles separating us and my large family not being able to afford the even larger traveling fares, I almost never got to visit my grandmother in Michigan. If you asked me what my grandmother smelled like, how her skin felt, or what her favorite color was, I wouldn't be able to tell you. If you asked me to paint a mental picture of her, the only thing I can think of is a Hallmark card that my mom found that contained an image of my grandmother. I can't imagine her in her house or with me or my siblings. I can't imagine her in her youth or as an elder. Imagine looking at a blank page with only your name written down. That page represents my relationship with my grandmother. I have no details to write about, nothing to elaborate on. For this reason, I look to my mom for stories about this woman, stories about what she was like and how she acted, anything that would give me some kind of glimpse at who my grandma was. When I asked my mom to tell me about my grandma, she gave me a pretty basic description of her. Pretty, 5'6" with blue eyes and blonde hair, and she always wore red lipstick. I sat there unsatisfied, gaining no more knowledge than I would have received from a picture or a stranger who had just passed her on the street. I pried for something more, something that would really help me get to know this woman who played such a dominant role in my mom's life. Finally, my mom began to tell me more. She had a great sense of humor, my mom said. One of her favorite things to do was when company was leaving, she would stand close to the car, and as they began to drive away, she would bang on the side of the car, jump up and down, or fall to the ground, and pretend like they had run over her foot. My mom does that to people who leave our house, and never fails to shock everyone in the car and leave everyone else who is in on the prank in tears from laughing so hard. I always thought that my mom had made that trick up on her own. I never knew she had actually gotten it from her mom. According to my mom, my grandmother was also kind and generous. Her door was always open. She loved having people over and helping others out, never expecting anything in return. My mom tells me that neighbors would come over all the time because they always knew my grandmother would have a treat for them. Everyone tells me about how much my grandmother loved to cook. She always cooked delicious food, and in a time when warming ovens and microwaves were non-existent, she always managed to create large meals where everything was served hot. My mom's the same way. She cooks tons of food, and just like when she was little, we always had family dinners growing up. My grandmother did not bring home fast food or takeout when my mom was growing up, nor did my mom when I was growing up. My grandmother taught my mom the importance of a home-cooked family meal, and my mom has taught us the same thing. I know that one day I will cook large meals for my family in hopes of continuing this tradition. After hearing stories about my grandmother, only one word comes to mind: strength. 2 of my aunts suffered from polio when they were younger, and no one would go near their house. My grandma nursed them back to health while continuing to provide and take care of her other 5 children. My grandmother never felt like anyone owed her anything. She never expected anyone to do anything for her except allow her to help them. I cannot recall any personal memories shared with my grandmother. The only things I know about her are the stories that my mom has shared with me. But even still, my mom does not tell me about things that she and her mom did together. It's like reading someone's bio on their profile. You get to know what they liked, but you don't actually get to know them. With the stories that my mom has shared with me, it has begun to fill in the spot where memories of my grandmother should be. Where it was once a complete blank, it is now grainy. My grandmother died when I was still young. I had to say goodbye to someone I had never been given the chance to know. It was like saying goodbye to someone before you ever said hello. The worst part about it is not having a single memory of her that is my very own. While I do remember going to her house once and picking raspberries in her front yard and playing Barbies with my sister in her living room, I don't remember my grandma. If I could tell my grandmother anything, it would be that I love her and I regret not getting the chance to know her. I would thank her for my mom and for teaching my mom the lessons that she did, because ultimately she has shaped who I am. As I search to find out who this woman was, I feel like something is missing. It's hard not knowing about my family's past or having any memories of my own aside from what my mom tells me and old pictures. I wish I had memories with her that I could one day share with my children. I wish there were things that she and I did that I could one day do with my grandchildren. But I don't, and I never will. For most people, a grandmother is someone who they have a silly name for, someone who they get excited to see, and someone that covers them in kisses. For me, however, a grandmother is secondhand stories and passed down pictures of a woman I will never really know.